In May of 2025, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed a massive crowd of 200,000 women gathered in Bhopal. The state had mobilized this enormous event to mark the 300th birth anniversary of Queen Ahilyabai Holkar. To mark the occasion, the government issued a 300 rupee commemorative silver coin, the first of its kind. And in the lead-up to the event, across Indian social media and heritage blogs, a specific 4-line stanza praising the Queen's kind heart and bright fame began circulating widely. But those lines were not written by an Indian scholar or a contemporary court poet. They were penned by Joanna Baillie, an 86-year-old Scottish playwright, sitting by a fireside in Hampstead, London in 1849. Baillie never traveled to India. She had no direct connection to the subcontinent, and she printed this verse 50 years after Queen Ahilyabai died. This poem serves as a vital historical receipt. It provides hard evidence of exactly how a localized record of competent governance managed to travel across oceans and centuries. Ahilyabai Holkar was born into a shepherd family. By 1767, a cascade of deaths had left her a widow and without a male heir. Rather than submit to the expectation of sati, the practice of widow immolation, she successfully petitioned to rule the Holkar kingdom in her own right. She immediately rejected schemes from her ministers to install a puppet ruler. Instead, she commanded her own forces, appointed a loyal soldier as her military head, and separated the state treasury from her private fortune. She then initiated a massive architectural restoration project across the subcontinent. She rebuilt dozens of sacred sites, including the towering Kashi Vishwanath temple seen in this image, completing the reconstruction in 1780, over a century after its demolition. Her economic impact was equally sweeping. As shown by this traditional handloom, she personally revived the Maheshwari textile industry by inviting weavers to her capital and even designing the first sari herself. That macro-level infrastructure was paired with a highly specific compassion. She installed cooling water tanks and stone troughs along trade routes, strictly for thirsty oxen pulling plows. And she governed directly in the open. She held daily public audiences on massive stone riverfront ghats like these along the Narmada, allowing even the poorest citizens to approach her seat of justice. Over 30 years, she created an empirical blueprint of selfless, effective governance. The results were so undeniable that her reputation quickly spilled over her regional borders. The first step in that historical transmission happened in the 1820s. Sir John Malcolm, a British colonial administrator, spent years collecting oral testimonies from the region's inhabitants, just a generation after the Queen's death. Malcolm compiled these local memories into a detailed memoir. He concluded that Ahilyabai was one of the purest and most exemplary rulers that ever existed. This diagram maps out the chain of custody. We see the historical record jump from the oral memory of Malwa in 1795, codified into Malcolm's memoir in 1823, and ultimately crossing the ocean to London in 1849, where Joanna Baillie selected the Queen as the final subject for her series of heroic biographies. Baillie was rigorous about her method. She explicitly outsourced her fact-checking to Malcolm's memoir, entirely rejecting sensational rumors, like a popular myth that the Queen had executed her own son with an elephant. Baillie took exactly one conceptual liberty. As the devout daughter of a Presbyterian minister, she framed the Hindu queen's virtues entirely through a Christian theological lens, writing a prologue arguing that divine light reaches even those in heathen darkness. The resulting poem is a staggering historical hybrid. It completely sidesteps the standard Orientalist tropes of the British Empire. There is no harem fantasy or sensational despotism here, only a sober civic eulogy praising justice and charity. Because it was printed for private circulation, the poem failed to find a mass audience in Victorian Britain. For over a century, it sat in the archives as a minor scholarly footnote. But in the modern internet era, the text has experienced a chaotic and vibrant revival. Indian heritage blogs and digital platforms have rapidly circulated the verse, sharing it thousands of times. This side-by-side layout highlights a classic game of telephone. The internet has inadvertently garbled the original 1849 text. We can see how Baillie's phrase, "in better days," has mutated into latter days, and how "bright her fame" has been swapped to "bright her frame." These transcription errors actually matter. They prove that the verse has broken free from a static colonial archive and evolved into a living, breathing piece of cultural memory. An 1849 Scottish poem, written by a woman who never left Britain, has found its true audience. It stands as proof that genuine leadership is universally recognizable, outliving both the subject who practiced it and the poet who wrote it down.